Versailles, the dazzling jewel of France, a palace of gold, mirrors, and endless beauty. But behind the grand chandeliers and lavish gardens lay a darkness that few dared to speak of. The French court, elegant, refined, and obsessed with appearances, was also a breeding ground for fear, jealousy, and betrayal. And in the shadows of Versailles, whispers grew louder, whispers of witchcraft, black magic, and forbidden rituals that could decide who rose to power and who fell into ruin. Tonight, we step inside the dark history of the French court. We will uncover the secrets of poisoners, witches, and nobles who risked their souls in pursuit of power. This is the story of the dark rituals of Versailles. Versailles was the creation of Louis XIV, the Sun King. A palace so magnificent, it became the center of Europe's politics, culture, and art. To live here was the highest honor, but also the greatest risk. Every smile hid a secret, every gesture a strategy, and with so much at stake, men and women of the court turned not only to flattery and charm, but to something far more dangerous, the occult. In a palace built to glorify the king, nobles secretly burned black candles, drew circles in chalk, and whispered prayers not to God, but to forces darker, older, and forbidden. To some, these were just superstitions, but for others, witchcraft was the key to survival at court. And survival in Versailles was everything. The darkness came into full light in one of the greatest scandals of French history, the affair of the poisons. Between 1677 and 1682, the very heart of the French court was shaken by accusations of murder, black masses, and witchcraft. At the center of it all stood Catherine Montvoisin, known as La Voisin, a fortune teller, a midwife, and, in the eyes of her enemies, a witch. La Voisin operated in the shadows of Paris, selling potions, poisons, and charms to the desperate and the ambitious. She organized black masses, where the sacred rituals of the church were twisted into unholy ceremonies. Witnesses described altars draped in black, Latin chants whispered backwards, and candles lit with human fat. Some even claimed that infants were sacrificed, their blood spilled to seal the power of the ritual. Who were her clients? Not peasants, not outsiders, but the nobles of Versailles itself. The highest ladies of the court came to La Voisin, begging for love potions, fertility charms, or powders that could rid them of rivals. And among them was one of the most powerful women in France, Madame de Montespan. She was not only the mistress of King Louis XIV, she was his confidant, the mother of several of his children, and one of the most influential women at Versailles. But power at court was fragile, and to maintain the love of the king, rumors say that Madame de Montespan turned to La Voisin. It was said that she participated in black masses, lying naked on an altar while prayers were whispered over her, that she drank strange elixirs to maintain her beauty, and that she whispered the king's name in rituals, meant to bind his heart to hers forever. When the scandal erupted, nobles were arrested, tortured, and executed. La Voisin herself was burned alive in 1680, her screams echoing through Paris, but her secrets died with her, and the shadow of witchcraft never truly left Versailles. In the French court, witchcraft was not just a matter of superstition, it was a weapon. Accusations of sorcery destroyed reputations overnight. Fortune tellers became secret advisors, guiding noble women in decisions of marriage, alliance, and betrayal. Potions and poisons were slipped into wine goblets, hidden in pastries, and smeared on gloves, each one carrying the power to change history. The king himself could not escape these whispers. Louis XIV, the most powerful monarch in Europe, found his court consumed by scandal. Priests and judges investigated the poisoners. Trials filled the city. Hundreds were implicated, from minor nobles to powerful aristocrats. And still, behind the glittering mirrors of Versailles, people whispered, if the king's own mistress could be accused of witchcraft, who else might be practicing the dark arts, hidden in plain sight? At night, when the torches burned low and silence fell over the halls, Versailles revealed its other face. In secret chambers, nobles gathered for rituals they swore were for fortune and love. Black candles flickered in the darkness. Ancient words were spoken over bowls of blood and herbs. Symbols of the occult were drawn on parchment and burned, their ashes swallowed in wine. Some nobles believed demons could grant them wealth. Others sought eternal youth through alchemy, and many begged for charms to win the favour of the king. Witnesses claimed that Madame de Montespan herself stood over black altars. Her prayers whispered not to heaven, but to hell, and though Louis XIV tried to bury the scandal, he could never fully erase it. The rituals of Versailles became part of its legend, a hidden history of shadows lurking behind golden walls. By the late 1600s, the scandal of witchcraft and poison had burned itself out. Dozens were executed, others imprisoned for life, and the king, eager to restore his image, silenced any who spoke too openly of the affair. But the darkness of Versailles was never forgotten. Even today, historians debate the truth. Were the Black Masses real, or were they the inventions of tortured witnesses, desperate to save themselves? And yet, there are places within Versailles where tourists whisper of strange feelings, rooms that seem colder than the rest, chambers where the mirrors reflect more than just your face. The Palace of Light and Order still holds its shadows, and perhaps, just perhaps, the spirits of those who played with witchcraft still walk its halls. Versailles is remembered as the crown jewel of France, a monument to beauty, power, and the glory of the Sun King. But beneath the mirrors and gold, behind the music and dance, a darker story was written, a story of witches and poisoners, of nobles who prayed not to God, but to demons, and of a court that was willing to risk everything, even their souls, to hold power in the king's favour. History calls him the Sun King, but in the dark corners of Versailles, the night belonged to witches,